Stephen, of course, the unveiling of the initial college football playoff rankings, Alabama at number 2. I'm certainly on record in regards to my thoughts concerning the ranking, but we need to hear from you. So what do you think the committee has told us about Bama, not only for right now, but how that may help them down the line?
Well, to be honest with you, Mark, I thought the committee was going to put Alabama at 3. I did not think at first that they would jump Alabama over Cincinnati or pull Cincinnati out of the top 4 just due to how well Coach Luke Fickell or quarterback Desmond Ridder and that team has played this year, still being undefeated. So I did not think it would jump Alabama over Cincinnati or pull the Bearcats out. But going back to the committee's decision, it is, Alabama has quality schedules, got quality wins over teams that are in the CFP initial top 25 rankings. Even the loss to Texas A&M was a quality loss. The Aggies still continuing to win, and despite all the craziness that happened in that matchup, the Tide still had a chance to win that game despite it not happening. And then you also have to look at, more times than not in the playoffs, the committee sees how consistent Alabama is in the big moments, in the big games, and in the big spots. But then I also look at this. I think the committee has been influenced by a lot of the national eyeballs. What I mean by that, Mark, is if you look at a lot of the conversation, it's become the best 2 teams in college football, Georgia and Alabama. We all know it. We all sense it. Let's just move towards the SEC championship game potentially and get that matchup on the field and get that matchup inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium, because that's the matchup that we all kind of want to see. When you look at the storylines of Kirby Smart, can he finally crack the code on Nick Saban and get that first national championship? Can Nick Saban continue to keep Kirby Smart from winning a national championship? And then the biggest piece of it all, you've got this high-flying offense with Alabama with Bryce Young at quarterback, averaging 46 points per game. Can this be the offense to wear down a vaunted, dominant, attacking, marquee Georgia defense that's just stifling everybody in college football? So I think at the end of the day, Mark, the committee kind of looked at, okay, the national talking heads, the national eyeballs are saying, this is the game people want to see. They want to see Alabama, Georgia. Let's go ahead and put Bama at number 2 behind Georgia and see how these chips fall right here. But then also, I go back to just the quality of schedule that Alabama has played, seeing a lot of the opponents that it's beat and still in that top 25. Even the loss of Texas A&M, a quality loss as the Aggies keep winning.
Of course, Alabama controls its own destiny. What this number 2 ranking says to me is that there is a possibility that Alabama, of course, runs the table through Auburn, goes to the SEC championship game, and loses a close classic game. Georgia, and of course, with wins over LSU and especially against Auburn and Arkansas, quality team, they will have cemented that number 2 position by that point. That a close loss to the consensus number 1 team in the country maybe keeps Alabama still in the top 4 despite a second loss.
I have looked at that as well, Mark, but then I also look at this from this clip also, and you brought it up, is the committee could be setting up a situation where, and I know people don't like to hear this, the possibility of 2 SEC teams in the playoffs. People have always talked about it. Why the SEC gets 2 teams in? Why we can't get more conferences involved? Expand the playoff. Let's go to 8 teams, 12 teams, 64 teams. We got to get more people in here than the usual suspects. But once again, if Alabama wants to run the table the rest of the regular season and get to the SEC championship and either beat Georgia in a classic close game, and that way you have a one-loss Georgia still in the SEC, still in the college football playoff, or like you mentioned, you have Alabama going to the SEC championship game, and it loses a tightly contested but a great atmosphere of a game against Georgia. Then you would have to look at that. So it could be a situation where the committee, as much as people do not want to see 2 SEC teams in the college football playoff, that can also be on the committee's mind.
I got one more scenario for you, Stephen, and this is a complete mess, but it's a fun one, at least from my vantage point. I don't necessarily think that these teams are quite up to it because I just think that there's too many difficult games to get through. But we do have a situation where Bama controls the division. However, Auburn only has one loss, so they, in a sense, control the division as well. Texas A&M, of course, has the head-to-head against Bama. Ole Miss is the other team with 2 losses. They still have some games against each other, most notably this weekend, a really good matchup, Auburn at Texas A&M. If the winner of that game continues to carry through and Auburn beats Alabama, regardless of whether Texas A&M's the team to run the table or Auburn runs the table, then you create a either 2-way tie, 3-way tie, something, maybe a 4. Well, Ole Miss would lose to Texas A&M, possibly a 3-way tie, and then who knows? I don't know how that gets decided. I guess if Auburn beat the other 2, then they would go to the SEC championship game. But to me, that would be a whole lot of fun to see that get sorted out. Then you would have a 2-loss team in the SEC championship game. And if they win it, there's no question they go on to the playoff.
I mean, Mark, everybody loves chaos. This is what makes college football fun. This is what makes college football the sport that it is. People love to see chaos ensue and create ways and situations and scenarios of how can we get the most chaos. So if it goes down, Mark, the way the option you just displayed here, if it goes down like that, you're going to have everybody glued to a television screen because what type of chaos could we get?